Okay, I have got a round 3 game for you tonight from the Novice Tournament. This is RadioWaves down here in the bottom left, and they are up against InferGnome up in the top right. InferGnome as the Terran player, RadioWaves as the Zerg down here. So let's see what sort of things they're going to be cracking out in this map. I do like this map. I like this map a lot. If I was playing on this map, and I've played a lot of games on this map, I'd probably be inclined, rather than walling off the top of this ramp, to potentially wall off this area down at the bottom here. Doesn't take as long as you might think. I know it's a pretty big area, but I'd be tempted to. Although against a Zerg player, it never does any harm to make sure that you're going to be bulletproof against any early pressure from a whole bunch of Zerglings. Speaking of which, there's the spawning pool going down at 14 supply, so you know that's a reasonably early pool. Up here we see InferGnome going for the double supply depot, not taking any chances at getting this barracks down. That is a complete wall. That is exactly what I like to see. That's the way to do it. Notice this worker is locked out, but we can drop the supply depot here and let the worker back in. In you pop. Get him back to work, raise the depot, and getting that early second depot does mean that in the event that your opponent sends a worker across the map to scout, they won't be able to get in and they won't be able to see anything, as long as of course you remember to put the depot back up. It also means that if a bunch of Zerglings turn up at your door, they're not going to get into your mineral line. They can start nibbling away at these things and be a little bit annoying, but all you've got to do is pull a couple of workers, set them on repair, and you should see that off pretty handily. Early engineering bay coming down to the Terran player. Not sure what the plan is with that, if it's just going to be some fast upgrades. Maybe they're thinking about a missile turret. You need an engineering bay to build a missile turret. And when you have a gap like this in the mineral line, it does give you a very useful space here to put a missile turret that's right in the middle of your mineral line but will not disrupt any mining. But nothing coming out of that engineering bay just yet. We do see some marines in production. We do not see an orbital command being built. Meanwhile, the Zerg player down here has expanded, which is very much as I would expect and very much as I'd like to see. If you are playing Zerg, it is really important that you get those hatcheries up and running. In general, in StarCraft, it is typically recognised that a Zerg player should have the number of bases their opponent has +1. So, you know, Zerg, that's kind of how they play. So a couple of lings on the map, probably going to just go for a wander about the place. On this map does have these Zelnaga watchtowers. If you plant a unit on this, it grants it vision of the whole surrounding area. I think these lings are probably going to encounter this worker. No, they're going to sail straight past. That's a bit of a result. This worker, not sure what it's doing, it's just having a look around, perhaps just checking for anything nasty. I think the lings are definitely going to find it this time though. So that worker is probably going to get taken out. We see that the spawning pool has finished the metabolic boost upgrade, so these lings are now reasonably quick, and there's a handful of them, so it does look like RadioWaves is going to be looking to apply some early pressure. It is hard to see how those lings will get through this wall though. In behind the wall we've got enough stuff to pick them off, so there's no way they're going to be able to get through this against these ranged units. In behind the wall, notice a bunker coming down, so I'm not taking any chances. Sending this Reaper down though and making it stand still was definitely an error. Reapers can be good against lings, they can be quite good. They're as fast as speedlings, off creep anyway, and you know that sort of mine that they can drop is very good at disrupting lings and mucking about with them generally. But what you don't ever really want Reapers to do is have a sort of standstill fight. That's kind of not how they roll. So over here we have only 2 workers in this gas. I don't know if that's a mistake or if that's something intentional. We have we have a factory coming down. Both of these barracks are in operation though. So InferGnome doing a pretty good job of macroing. Is still building workers. Does have stuff coming out of these production buildings. has managed, InferGnome has managed to supply block themselves here, but let's not worry too much about that. They are doing things. Meanwhile, down in Zergland, we see still workers in production down here as well. The men not quite saturated just yet. Bearing in mind, Zerg, of course, when they want to build units, have to use larvae to do that. And if they're building units, it means they're not building workers. So unlike Terran or Protoss, where you can build both simultaneously, as a Zerg, if you want to build units, it means you're sacrificing workers. And that's always worth remembering, because it can sometimes feel a little bit OP that Zerg can get large numbers of units at your base very early in the game. But do remember that they sacrifice workers to do that. And if they have built units very early and have not managed to kill any of your workers, you can expect to have an economic advantage. That is not the case here, though, because RadioWaves has very successfully expanded, and this expo now saturated, this natural saturated. So if I check the income tab, I would very much expect to see the Zerg with a comfortable lead, and I do. So I switch to roaches. The roaches are not only in production, they are being upgraded. This upgrade that comes out of the roach warren gives roaches extra speed, and it's a crucial upgrade if you are going to be building roaches. It's a really important upgrade to get. It's also worth noting, to get that upgrade you do need to have a lair, so you need to turn your hatchery into a lair before you can do that. You do not need a lair to build roaches, you only need this roach warren. Is that a little roach or something just poking its head out of the roach warren? Is that what I just saw? I can't say I've ever noticed that before. It looks, oh yeah, look at that, that is quite rank. Okay. So the Zerg amassing a bit of a force here. If we look at the army supply, a quite substantial lead, and despite the fact that InferGnome has been doing some reasonable production earlier, production does appear to have kind of ground a bit to a halt. There's only one barracks producing. This factory has been finished a while but hasn't yet built anything, and this starport not yet building anything. So InferGnome, there is a bit of a storm coming your way, and what I'd like to see is either this factory building a tech lab and cranking out a siege tank. A widow mine would also be very useful defensively, placed at the top of the ramp or at the bottom of the ramp, or anywhere really, to be honest. Alternatively, the Cyclone, which has very recently had a bit of a buff in the latest patch for StarCraft. So InferGnome, if you knew this was coming, the right move would be to pull some SCVs and get them repairing these buildings so that these buildings can keep this stuff out. This is not going to be cost effective for the Zerg. However, it does look like they are going to break in. That's why having those workers repairing the buildings would have been so crucial for this. This does look like it's enough roaches to break through here. Although with the medivac healing, it is going to be close. And if there was more stuff in production from InferGnome, I would fancy InferGnome to hold this, but it looks like there are just enough roaches to make this work, and I don't think the Marines are going to be popping up quickly enough to see this off. This one Marine, like an absolute hero, this Marine is going to die pretty quickly, even with the 2 medivacs above it. What you need is something that's going to last a bit longer. Hellions, unfortunately, are not it. Hellions are great against Zerglings. They are not fantastic against the roaches. What you can do with, I suppose, is... Oh, this guy needs to be shooting the weakened roach. What you can do with here is some marauders, but no tech labs on the barracks. Here come the Lings. If RadioWaves has any sense, the Lings will run straight past these burning buildings into the here to destroy the income. Although, not that would actually not be good, because there's a lot of them. Hellions will fare very well against things, but not these sorts of numbers of Zergs. It looks very much to me like this game is over. A pretty reasonable standard of play from both players. If we go back to round 1, we've seen both of these players before in round 1, and I think it's fair to say that they've both improved significantly. Both players did a pretty good job of macroing. Both players knew what they were about, making good decisions. InferGnome blocking off the ramp, positioning units behind it. These are good things. Teching up to get medivacs out. Just unfortunate not to have had a few more barracks. If you look at this amassed mineral stash, the key to that was there was only 2 barracks at some of that time. they weren't really working at their full production. Our Zerg player, meanwhile, has done an excellent job of, expanding reasonably sharpish, getting a good income up and running, and then turning those minerals into a savage army. Just something to note that despite this significant force that RadioWaves has managed to crank out, look in the bank, huge amounts of money. It's all 3 bases is kind of the critical mass generally when you're playing StarCraft. If you've got 3 bases up and mining, you can spend money at a furious rate and not run out. But you need to be prepared to do that. You need to have the production facilities to be able to spend your money. Okay, that was pretty good. I liked it. GG.